The primary sector drives our region. And for nearly 150 years, Napier Port has been connecting our local producers to the people and markets of the world. 2020 has been a turbulent year for all New Zealanders, and our region's growers, farmers and farm foresters have faced a challenging year. Despite this, 2.4 million tonnes of logs and 268,000 containers have left Napier Port wharves. This shows the resilience of our local people and economy and the value of our region's food and fibre-based commodities. Our confidence in the region is such that through this period, we have forged ahead investing in more space. We started building our new multi-purpose wharf, Six Wharf, which when opened in 2022 will welcome larger and more ships, process more cargo and boost our capacity. We also opened an additional off-site container depot and pre-trip facility, and we kept investing in the equipment we need to make it all work. A third tug, bigger trucks and digital applications to make our operations even more efficient. Together, we're building a thriving region by connecting you to the world. Napier Port is proud to stand strong for our region and to support the people building a bright future.
Morena koutou. What an inspiring video highlighting some of the resources within Te Matawa Māui Hawke's Bay. To kick our kaupapa, our ASM off today, we're going to open with a mihi whakatau, which is a short welcome. Maybe to save a few confused looks, what I'm going to, just to let you know what I'm going to include in the mihi as an acknowledgement of the environment around us, including our marine environment, acknowledging those that have passed, those here today, and what our kaupapa, our occasion's about. So without further ado, we'll kick off. He koe koe te tui, he kete ana te kāka, e kuku ana te kereru, ti he mauri ora. Ki ngā atua, matua ai o kore kia rangi nui kia papatua nuku nāna nei ngā mea kato. Me mihi hoki ki ngā atua, ki ngā kaitiaki o te whenua nei. Me mihi hoki ki o mātou tipuna ātangaroa. Te māre kura pānia te kaitiaki a more rātou ko ngā puna turi. Ko tēnei te reo mihi kia rātou e tiaki ana te moana nei a te whanganui a orotu a te Matawa Māui hoki. Mauria mai, takoto mai o tātou tini mate. Ki ngā hunga hoki atu kia hine nui te pō. Ki ngā pare kawakawa, rātou kua wheturangitia. Haere ki Hawaii ki nui, ki Hawaii ki roa, ki Hawaii ki pāmāmā. Ka tiwaho te hunga mate ki te hunga mate, te hunga ora ki te hunga ora, tihei mauri ora. A ko tēnei te mihi ka tika kia koutou kua tae mai ki te kaupapa o te rā. Me mihi ka tika kia koutou ngā kai whaipānga o te herenga waka o ahuriri. Nō reira, nau mai, hara mai, whakatau ki tō tātou nei kaupapa. Ko te kaupapa whakahirahira o te rā. Kua tai mai koutou ki te wānanga, ki ngā kaupapa kei roto i te herenga waka i tēnei tau. Hei whakakapi tēnei kōrero ko tēnei. He mahi tahi tātou mo te oranga o te katoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I nāia nei kei te hoatu te rākau ki o tātou tiamana, mo te karakia tūwhera o tēnei kaupapa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou.
Kia ora. Whakataka te ho ke te uru, whakataka te ho ke te tonga. Kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E he aki ana te atakura he tio. He hoka, he hauho, haumi e, hui e, taiki e. That karakia, Te Kaha and I chose it because of the symbolism. It talks about the chill winds blowing over the region and the impact that can have, but that we look forward to the red dawn rising over the frost. And we thought with the chill winds of COVID having blown through the region and the world, that it was very fitting, because it finishes with this notion of looking forward to the sun rising on a new day. And we are sincerely hoping that the sun rises on a much better year next year. Tēnā koe te kaha, mō te mihi tuatahi o te kōpapa I te rāni. So a formal thank you to te kaha for the greeting, first greeting of today. And kia koutou kuata mai ki te kōpapa nei, tēnā koutou katoa. So a formal thank you and greeting to all of you who have come here for this special occasion. Kia ora, good morning, and welcome to all of you to Napier Port's annual shareholders meeting. My name is Alistair McLeod. I'm the chair of Napier Port Board, and I'll be running today's meeting. On behalf of the board, the chief executive, and our leadership team, I'd like to welcome shareholders, Napier Port people, and media to Napier Port's second annual shareholders meeting as a listed company. This year, shareholders are attending in person, as well as attending online via the virtual meeting platform provided by our share register, Link Market Services. Before we move on to the presentation, a few housekeeping messages. In the unlikely event of a fire, there's a fire exit through the door through which you entered. There's a fire exit round on the far left side, and there's one round the back behind that back pillar. So there are 3 exits to the building. In an earthquake, stop, drop, and hold. If the earthquake is long and strong, once the shaking stops, and that's once the ground stops shaking, you're probably still shaking, please exit the building and make your way up Bluff Hill. Toilets are just outside the main door of the room and off the exhibition room, where we'll have refreshments at the end of the meeting. And could you all please check that your mobile phones are on silent? Before we begin, here's the disclaimer advising that this presentation does not amount to financial advice. If you'd like to read it in detail, please feel free to download this presentation from the Napier Port Investment Centre. And for the speed readers, you've already covered that. I'd like to introduce our board of directors. First of all, Stephen Moyer, Diana Puketapu, Vincent Tremaine, who's joining us online today. We decided not to have his face beaming on the screen, but he's up there. John Harvey, Rick Barker, and Blair O'Keefe. And our senior management team, Chief Executive Todd Dawson, Chief Financial Officer Kristen Lee, General Manager Strategy and Innovation Andrea Manley. You can stand up and turn around and wave, and it'll make you all be visible. General Manager Commercial David Creel. General Manager Culture and Community Viv Bull. General Manager Marine and General Cargo Adam Harvey. General Manager Infrastructure Services Michael DeVos. And General Manager Container Operations Kia Zia. And our auditors, EY, are represented today by Simon Brotherton. You can acknowledge the applause of the crowd, Simon. The format for the meeting today will be as follows. Presentation of the annual results with a chairman's address, a CEO's address, and CFO's address. Following the presentation of the annual results, we'll take questions relating to those. Please note that only shareholders, proxy holders, or shareholder company representatives may vote or ask questions. We have roving mics for questions. Please raise your shareholder card to ask a question, and one of our people will bring you the microphone. Shareholders participating online through the virtual meeting website will be able to submit questions. And I encourage any shareholders who are watching online, if they have questions relating to the business of the meeting, to send their questions through as soon as possible. The presentation of the annual results will be followed by the formal business of the meeting, which includes 3 resolutions. We will present the resolution before questions relating to each resolution, followed by the voting. Before voting on each resolution, we will present the proxy voting results up on the screen, and then you'll be asked to vote. Shareholders online will be able to cast their vote online by pressing the Get a Voting Card button and validating yourself using your shareholder or proxy number. Please refer to the virtual meeting online portal guide or contact the team at Link on 0800 200 220 if you require any assistance. For our shareholders in attendance, you may vote as usual on the voting card given to you at the registration desk. Link representatives will collect your voting cards at the conclusion of the vote. If all of the results are tabulated and audited in time, I'll announce the results at morning tea. Otherwise, they will be posted on the NZX website and the Napier Port website as soon as they're available. We'll conclude the meeting with general business, and then light refreshments and a cup of tea will be served in the exhibition hall at the conclusion of the meeting. After refreshments, we're providing a short bus tour of the port, leaving from and returning to the forecourt outside. If you haven't already registered for the bus tour, please see Chris, whereas Chris is waving at the back there. So if you haven't registered and you want to see Chris in the main foyer, to register immediately after this meeting. The first bus will leave at 12 noon and the next one 15 minutes after that, and we'll just keep rotating the buses until everyone's had a chance to see the port. Due to customs requirements, you will require photo ID to get on the bus. And now for the formalities. The Company Secretary has confirmed to me that the notice of meeting has been sent to shareholders and other people entitled to receive it. The company's constitution prescribes a quorum requirement of 3 shareholders having the right to vote, and we've clearly met that today. Voting on all resolutions will be conducted by way of poll. Proxies have been appointed for the purposes of this meeting in respect of approximately 137 million shares, representing 69% of the total number of shares. My fellow directors and I intend to vote all discretionary proxies we have received in favour of the resolutions as set out in the notice of meeting. I'd like to thank shareholders for their participation in today's meeting, and again I'd encourage all shareholders who are watching online to send their questions through as soon as possible. I'd now like to give an overview of the 2020 financial year. 2020 has been a year like no other, with COVID disrupting lives, communities, and economies globally. It made our first full year as a listed company even more challenging than we could have predicted. However, despite that, Napier Port finished the year in a stronger position than we anticipated at the outset of COVID-19, achieving a solid financial result and making very good progress on our strategic initiatives. As you know, Napier Port is a key regional long-term infrastructure asset with the purpose of connecting our region to the world. Our listing a year ago provided the capital we needed to embark on our centrepiece strategic development programme, the construction of our 350-metre-long 6 wharf. Notwithstanding the difficulties experienced this year, our confidence in the region and the quality offering of our port is such that we forged ahead with the construction of 6 wharf. Despite 5 to 6 weeks tools down during alert level 4 lockdown, this vital piece of infrastructure remains on budget and on track to be completed by late 2022. When finished, it will give the port the ability to handle bigger ships, more shipping, and the ever-increasing volume of cargo generated by our region or attracted by our superior service and supply chain offerings. This year underscored the resilience of our regional economy and the many primary sector exporters who faced many challenges and still face uncertainty. We're grateful to the producers and cargo owners who worked diligently with our management and people to find solutions to the unique challenges we were all confronted with. And together we applied ourselves to the keeping cargo moving across our wharves. This has cemented the resilient nature of the region's primary sector and your port's dedication to connecting the region to the world. The solid financial results we're presenting today show we've made a strong recovery despite the challenges of the COVID-19 affected year. Whilst the economic environment and outlook have changed since the time of our original PDS forecasts made at the time of our IPO in August of last year, we are pleased that our financial results are in line with our original PDS forecasts. We've declared a final dividend of 5 cents per share, which is due to be paid today. And the board acknowledges the fact that the final dividend of $10 million, or 5 cents per share, is less than originally forecast in respect of the whole 2020 financial year. We determined that it was prudent to take a conservative approach when we consider the economic outlook, the near-term earnings outlook, the group's existing significant capital commitments, its COVID-19 response plan, and capital management policy. As we outlined in our half-year report, we remain grateful for your support as we focus on protecting and growing the long-term value of your port. At the peak of COVID-19, we applied for and received the government wage subsidy. And I just want to acknowledge our gratitude to the government for the speed of their response. The subsidy fulfilled its purpose, which gave us confidence to retain all of our staff on full pay, whether they could come to work or not. Subsequently, given the strength of our recovery during the year, we determined to repay the wage subsidy because we felt it was the right thing to do. The response of our team to these changes, from our Chief Executive Todd Dawson and the senior management team, through to those on the front line moving cargo, has been inspiring. Without exception, the team has worked hard to protect the health and safety of our people and our region while applying themselves assiduously to the task of keeping cargo moving across our wharves. Looking forward, we will continue working towards delivering our business plan and sustainability strategy. However, the environment in which we are currently operating is more uncertain, and we'll comment further on that later in the meeting. I'd like to introduce Napier Port Chief Executive Todd Dawson to present his report on the 2019-2020 financial year. Todd.
Thank you, Alistair, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to attend our annual shareholder meeting today. Stating the obvious, this year has been an extraordinary year for Napier Port, our customers and our community. We know that when the region does well, Napier Port does well and vice versa. And this year we have shared moments of uncertainty and concern, as well as celebrating achievements and some success. We're committed to doing everything we can to support a thriving regional economy, which means supporting exporters to get to international markets and bringing imports through that our producers and our economy need. In our first year as a publicly listed company, Napier Port can look back on 2020 with a real sense of pride and achievement. I've previously referred to 2020 as a financial year as a game of two halves. The first half of the year saw us make good progress on the delivery of our strategic objectives and saw the strength of trade coming from the Hawke's Bay continuing to build momentum. We saw a very smooth start-up to the major construction program of Sixth Wharf, as well as steady progress being made on a number of our other key projects. As COVID-19 began to take hold globally around January or February this year, the potential economic impact of the pandemic became very evident, and we started to feeling its effects through the port. The COVID-19 pandemic and government responses created significant uncertainty for our people, operations, and our trade leading into the second half of the year. However, in the face of these significant challenges, we have achieved a solid financial result and continue to deliver on the purpose of working for our region. We see our success this year primarily as a result of the dedication of our people and a revalidation of our strategy, which places our customers and our region's cargo owners at the centre of its focus. I'm just going to touch on a few of our highlights of this year. So this year we hosted 673 ship calls, and it consisted of 293 container vessels, 304 charter vessels, and 76 cruise vessels. We moved 5 million tonnes of cargo across our wharves, and that consisted of 268,000 TEU or containers, 20-foot equivalent units, and 2.4 million tonnes of logs. We achieved over $100 million in revenue for the first time and achieved a record profit result. Overall, a very satisfying outcome and one that underlines the performance of our team and also the resilience of our trade base. In any other year, Napier Port would treat this as business as usual. What makes this year stand out is that we achieved all of this as well as a solid financial result, despite the impact of the COVID-19 lockdown, when all trade apart from essential cargo ceased to move. As mentioned previously, the challenges of this year revalidates for us the strategic direction we're taking at Napier Port. Our strategy focuses on 4 key areas: customer connection, data and technology, networked infrastructure, and building collaborative partnerships, all of which are underpinned by our culture of care that recognises the people are the foundation of our business. I'm really delighted to report that we've made significant progress in all areas of the strategy this year, which are detailed extensively in our annual report, but today I'm going to touch on a few of some of the key highlights. Health and safety around our culture of care. We want everyone at the port to go home safely every day, and 1 year into our comprehensive 3-year health and safety program, we're making excellent progress in achieving this. We implemented over 50% of the requirements of our ISO 45001 management system, which is a best practice standard for occupational health and safety practices. A critical risk control management program was introduced, and we've completed 18 critical risk assessments this year. What made this program even more effective was the strong involvement from our operational teams, with the end result being that they have a fit-for-purpose risk assessments that our people are invested in. A new health and safety management system was also introduced during the year. It helps to identify risks before it becomes evident or it becomes an incident, and it provides consistent reporting across the team so we can spot trends early and know how we are tracking with improving our health and safety outcomes on the port. Our health and safety philosophy at the port is one of just culture, and it's underpinned by worker participation and collaboration on initiatives. We are seeing improvements in engagement with health and safety training and outcomes. Whilst this is really pleasing, we always want to do better in this area, and we're confident our health and safety roadmap will continue to deliver improvements for us over time. Just a few weeks ago, we had the pleasure of opening up our Napier Port to our port team's families for the first time in 8 years. I've said often this year that the dedication of our people is what's enabled our success. Our people are the foundation of our business, and we wanted to show our appreciation not just for our people, our team, but also for their families who play a key role in enabling our business to perform. This was especially the case this year, as many of our families faced the anxiety of COVID-19 and having an essential worker leaving to come to work and coming home every day. More than 600 of our people and their families attended the whānau day, complete with Art Deco bus tours of the port, a tugboat ballet, food, entertainment, and being able to safely get up close and personal with some of our bigger machinery and some of our wharves. It's not often we get to do that. It's a great opportunity for our team to share in their workplace with their families, that for most part the port is mostly shut off from the public. During the year, we also extended a number of partnerships with very long-standing customers, demonstrating our commitment to putting cargo owners at the centre of our focus. WPI. Our agreement with Winstone Pulp International was renewed for 10 years with 2 further 5-year rights of renewals. This is to export WPI's pulp and timber products from its mill in the central North Island. A key decision factor for WPI in selecting Napier Port was the resilience we've shown and our passion for service delivery, and it certainly gives them the impression that Napier Port has a clear plan for the future, and a future that incorporates not only the Hawke's Bay but the whole of the Central and Lower North Island. WPI could actually export from any of the main North Island ports, so their decision to remain with Napier Port is a welcome endorsement of the long-term value that we've been delivering for them. Ovation meets by providing more flexible and efficient transport solutions together with a greater choice of shipping services. We've also welcomed an increase in the Ovation New Zealand Limited's high-quality meat exports from further afield, in particular from their Tikawiti and Fielding plants. We've removed transportation waste from their supply chain, and we're able to support Ovation to cut down on some of their CO2 emissions, and also provided them with access to additional container shipping services. Again, this reinforces our strategy of connecting with our customers and understanding their businesses as adding value and building lasting relationships with them. On the data and technology front, this year we continue to develop digital platforms that benefit our people and our customers and their day-to-day work. They're driving real operational efficiencies on the port, which also provides customers and suppliers with a better service and experience when working with us. Some real practical examples of this are our Shareholders system, which is a customised marine harbour management tool, our Port Pass system, which is our new online all-in-one identity card and access system, and Propel, which is our new vehicle booking system. Our ability to create new and versatile applications that are practical and quick and easy to implement is becoming a true point of difference for Napier Port in the industry. We are very proud to have been able to develop these in-house and to have created new income streams for Napier Port off the back of our own technology developments. To provide the services our region and customers will need for the future, a resilient and agile infrastructure network is essential. The centrepiece of this program is the development of our new 350-metre long Sixth Wharf. Sixth Wharf will unlock the future growth of Hawke's Bay and also the Central and Lower North Island by providing the infrastructure that has a greater capacity and capability for moving cargo and handling more and larger ships in the future. This key project has been progressing really well this year. Despite the interruption during the lockdown period when construction had to stop, we remain on track for completion in 2022, and crucially we remain on budget. The initial and some of the most challenging phases of this project have been seen during the startup, and they've gone really well. Piling has progressed with about 1/2 of the 400 piles completed, and our dredging program is well advanced also. Operational planning for the commencement of Sixth Wharf in 2022 is going very smoothly, and my whole team is very excited about the potential that this development holds for our future and the capability to service our customers and the whole of New Zealand. Sixth Wharf will be a real boost to Napier Port's future capacity, and our continued investment in such a significant piece of critical regional infrastructure is well supported by the trade we see coming today as well as that which we see coming in the future. Expanding our capability means focusing not only on port infrastructure such as wharfs, but it also means that we need to focus on freight hubs and warehousing that producers rely on, as well as the road, rail and sea links that connect our customers' cargo to the port. Thames 2, our secondary empty container depot. It opened for business during March this year. It holds and prepares containers ready for the region's exporters and provides much needed space for our container operations while we develop Sixth Wharf. At our shareholders meeting last year, we introduced our new tug, Kaweka. She's our third tug and has now come into full operation. And she's delivering great results with a lot more manoeuvrability, fuel efficiencies, and is enabling us to avoid a lot more secondary vessel moves across the port. Kaweka has also allowed us to berth some of the larger container vessels that come to us during nighttime hours, which has improved the availability of our wharves for all our customers. At Manawatu, in our inland port operation, this is another key part of our infrastructure planning and is an inland freight hub, and it takes waste and cost out of the supply chain. In Manawatu, our hub is delivering cost efficiencies and greater shipping choices for customers in the central North Island. This now makes Napier Port more accessible for exporters throughout Taranaki, Wanganui and the Manawatu. Sustainability. sustainability is a key business strategy for us as we recognise the importance of leaving a positive legacy for future generations, while delivering for our customers in Hawke's Bay's regional economy. During 2020, we developed our sustainability strategy, which is built on the framework put in place last year and is aligned to the UN Sustainability Development Goals. Our approach is to think globally but act locally. There are 111 work streams within our sustainability strategy, and we've identified 18 top priority work streams, including the areas of climate change, creating equality, diversity and inclusion across the port, good neighbour programs, cultural strategy, and our marine and cultural health program. We're particularly excited about the development this year of the Marine Cultural Health program. This program is a New Zealand first and potentially a global first. And it's been founded by Napier Port and the Mana Whenua Steering Committee. And the committee is made up of representatives from different marae, hapu and Mana Whenua entities partnering with Napier Port. This program aims to protect, monitor and assess the cultural health of the marine environment, particularly Pania Reef, during the Sixth Wharf Development Program. We're looking forward to launching the program in real-time tracking of the marine cultural health with the Steering Committee early next year. Many sustainability initiatives are already underway at the port, including commitment to zero emissions by 2050, as well as establishing immediate targets in our short term. There's been more than 150 korora, little blue penguins, have been relocated into our sanctuary, and just a couple of weeks ago, the first chicks were hatched. We are improving our energy efficiencies where we can, and such as using LED lighting, more efficient forklifts as we upgrade, electric vehicle charging stations being installed, and we have begun transitioning our light vehicle fleet over to EVs. We're continually looking for ways to minimise waste in supply chain, such as reducing the movement of empty containers, and we're now in the process of developing our sustainability reporting capabilities, collecting some baseline information and setting some KPIs for the future to be able to track towards. So, just to sum up, while this year has not been without its fair share of challenges, our people, our region and our trade has shown itself to be highly resilient. We're satisfied with the result and pleased to be able to continued making considerable progress on our strategic initiatives this year. Napier Port's in good shape to be able to capitalise on the growth prospects and also the opportunities we see in the future. And we've shown ourselves to be pretty adaptable to the changes that can come from the least expected situations, as well as taking advantage of some of the opportunities that have presented themselves along the way. The value of our loyal customer base provides us with the confidence to keep investing in our forward-looking development program and our customer-focused strategy for growth. I'd now like to hand over to Napier Port's Chief Financial Officer, Kristen Lee, to present the financials, after which I'll return and just briefly touch on some of the 2021 outlook.
Thank you, Todd, and good morning, everybody. In 2020, our total cargo volumes were just over 5 million tonnes, a 7.5% decrease from 2019. The decrease was driven by COVID-19 disruptions both here and abroad, and in particular, the categorisation of forestry products as non-essential, seen during the April and May Alert Level 4 lockdown period. Total bulk cargo was 3.1 million tonnes. The largest component of this, log exports, were 2.4 million tonnes, an 8.3% decrease on the prior year. This was due to the market disruptions in China at the beginning of the calendar year, followed by the cessation of harvesting in New Zealand during the Alert Level 4 lockdown. Our container services business was broadly in line with last year, with 268,000 TEU, down just 1.1% or 3,000 TEU. Container volumes were impacted to a lesser extent than our bulk cargo because food products, amongst others, were categorised as essential during Level 4, and they continued to flow during the lockdown. Higher value reefer or refrigerated container units increased by 2.1% whereas dry TEUs decreased by 7.3%, largely due to their dominant cargo of pulp and timber being classified as non-essential during the lockdown. Despite the Alert Level 4 lockdown, a container packing operation for mainly pulp and timber products, known as Portpack, had a relatively solid year with 49,000 TEU packed, down just 2% from last year. Apple and pear volumes saw a record equaling year, which was a great result for that industry given their challenges to maintain their operations and the disrupted international markets they experienced. Overall, we see the trade result as a good one given the circumstances and reflective of the resilience in the local economy and demand for our region's products. During 2020, we achieved the milestone of becoming a $100 million revenue business with 0.8% growth year on year, despite the 7.5% decrease in total cargo volume by weight. Cargo volume decreases were offset by increases to average revenues per cargo unit. Other than cruise, our main two sources of revenue arise from container services and bulk cargo services. Container services revenue grew 1.9% year on year to $62.3 million, which resulted from average revenue per TEU increasing 3% in the year, which offset the 1.1% reduction of TEU trade volume. Bulk cargo revenue was down 3.1% year on year to $31.3 million, which was driven by the 8.3% volume decline to 3.1 million tonnes, and which exceeded the average revenue per tonne increase of 5.7% in the year. Our shortened 2020 cruise season saw revenue increase just under 15% to $4.3 million versus 2019, continuing its relatively high growth trajectory. Cruise vessel calls of 76 were 11 fewer than forecast, but 6 more than 2019. Of the 11 missed calls, 4 related to weather events and 7 were cancelled as a result of COVID-19 restrictions late in the season. As we have communicated previously, we do not expect a resumption of cruise ship visits this current cruise season. We are also conscious of the possibility that this situation may be in place for an extended period. Just a brief recap on what was undoubtedly one of the main events of our 2020 financial year and what we set out to achieve with our COVID-19 response plan that we formulated at the peak of uncertainty in the most severe lockdown period. Our primary focus during these times has been to ensure the safety of our people and users of the port. Our financial response aimed to deliver a prudent approach to managing our cost base and balance sheet, in particular across the 18-month period to the end of the 21 financial year, as we face the significant uncertainty that is ahead of us all. We repeat a note on the slide here a number of the measures we initiated. Whilst these have resulted in cost savings in the short term, they are temporary in nature and are not sustainable for an extended period. A number rely on the goodwill of our stakeholders, including our staff and shareholders. We estimate operating expenditure savings in 2020 of $2.2 million and a further approximately $5 million of mostly CapEx deferrals to later periods. Some initiatives remain on the table, but in terms of managing expectations, we expect the current financial year to reflect a sustainable cost path resuming during 2021. However, we continue to maintain operating and capital expenditure discipline. On a comparable pro forma basis, 2020 net profit of $20.4 million was $0.8 million ahead of 2019 and $0.4 million ahead of our original PDS forecast. The reported statutory net profit after tax of $22 million included a number of items that were adjusted out for the pro forma measure purposes. These include relating to property revaluation gains for our property at Whakatū, just under $0.7 million of tax benefits related to changes in tax depreciation on buildings, and just under 600,000 of impairments of infrastructure assets related to our Sixth Wharf development project. The 2019 reported statutory net profit of 6.8 million, shown in red, included the significant one-off IPO and restructuring costs that were detailed last year. Capital spend during the year was 53.1 million, or 46 million in cash flow terms, the majority of which went towards Sixth Wharf construction. Other completed development projects in the year were final payments for our third tug Kāweka and the remaining payments to complete the development of our off-port Thames Street Container Services depot. Major replacement CapEx items in the year included wharf major maintenance dredging, and empty container handling equipment. In the current year and future years, our development capital spend has ramped up as we continue to build for growth. Due to rephased spend of Sixth Wharf construction leading up to the signing of the construction contract, plus an approximate 5-week delay from the COVID Level 4 shutdown on Sixth Wharf construction, and deferrals of other forecast capital spend as part of our COVID measures, we remained in a cash positive position at the end of the financial year, having spent less than originally forecast in the PDS. At the balance sheet date, we retained our 180 million in undrawn bank facilities, which we have subsequently drawn upon in October. Finally, a comment on our capital management targets. Our stated objective is to target a long-term range of 2 to 3 times for our net debt to EBITDA ratio. EBITDA, in the terms of our financial statements, are our results from operations. EBITDA means earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortisation. Our target of 2 to 3 times with a target peak of no greater than 3.5 times through the Sixth Wharf construction period. Given the current environment, including the lack of cruise revenue, at least in the short term, a peak ratio above 3.5 times is now considered likely. This is a point of focus with a view to mitigating this increase over time, and we expect to remain well within our actual banking covenant limit of 4.5 times. I'll now hand back over to Todd for comments on the outlook for the 21 financial year. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. We're keenly focused on what 2021 and beyond will bring us. The 21 financial year comes with a fair degree of uncertainty. Whilst the current trends and volumes remain steady in our business and our primary sector-based customers appear optimistic, we see a few key challenges ahead of us. Uncertain economic times and outlooks across global markets. The issue of a strong reliance on seasonal labour for the harvest of apples this year, and this time that still remains unresolved. To date, there's no international tourism sector being re-established in New Zealand due to the closed borders. This is a major obstacle to overcome prior to any cruise industry returning in the near future. As stated earlier, we are currently not expecting any cruise ship visits this cruise season, and we are conscious of the uncertainty regarding the timing and eventual extent of this industry's revival. There is a tightening supply on international container shipping capacity, and this is seeing large increases in international sea freight rates across major international trade routes. This is likely to flow through to higher costs for New Zealand exporters and importers. And there is a tightened supply of container equipment which is needed by our exporters due to international demand for these containers and disruptions within the New Zealand and the global supply chains currently. This is including all of the other ports around New Zealand. Our focus at this time is on ensuring that we remain vigilant to keeping our people and our community safe, and on pressing ahead with our growth plans to make the most of our current and future opportunities. Finally, a comment on our earnings for the next or our current financial year. At the time of our annual results release in November, we provided a range for the expected underlying result from operations for FY21 of between 34 million and 38 million. There's no update to this outlook at this time. However, it's worth reiterating the key reasons for the expected decrease from FY20 result of 41.2 million. As stated earlier, we currently are not expecting any cruise ship visits this cruise season. We continue to exercise a disciplined approach to the spend of operating and capital expenditure and are pursuing efficiencies. However, several of the cost-saving measures introduced during the response to COVID-19, including deferrals of operational and capital expenditure in FY20, cannot be sustained in the new financial year. Finally, the Board believes that Napier Port should configure itself for the long term, not only in terms of infrastructure, but also in terms of people and capability. All of these factors translate into the expectation for a lower underlying result from operations for the year to 30th September 2021. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the whole team at Napier Port for the dedication they've shown this year, and also like to thank the Board for their support of the management team over this really challenging period. Thank you. And we're looking forward to the future and to also making a difference for Hawke's Bay and New Zealand's importers and exporters. Once again, thank you very much for coming today, and now I'll hand back to our Chairman, Alistair McLeod. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd and Kristen. Now that we've concluded our presentation on the annual results, I'd like to open the floor to questions on the annual report and financial statement. So we're keeping the questions confined at this stage to that specific area. Again, if you have a question, please raise your shareholder card and one of our people will bring you the microphone. If you just wait till the microphone gets there, because even if I might hear, the people online probably won't. Shareholders participating online through the virtual meeting website will be able to submit questions, and we'll answer those after answering questions from the floor. And if you could please start your question by identifying who you are, that would be great. In fairness to all attending, we ask that you are as concise as possible and to ask one question at a time. Any media attending will be given a chance to ask questions directly to myself or Todd immediately after the meeting. Questions from the floor. Is there a question at the front here? Who's got a mic?
Thanks. Elizabeth Barrett, live in Napier. What percentage of revenue has come from live exports in 2021 or 2020?
And that to Todd or Kristen?
Sorry, can you hear me all right? So
Yep.
about just slightly less than 1% of revenue from live exports.
Okay, and you talked about growth in certain areas, and is that one area that the company is interested in growing?
It's not an area that we're actively pursuing growth in, but it's an area that is at the current time increasing through the port.
And last question, do you have any capability of saying no to that business?
At this stage, our focus is on making sure that we are ensuring that the vessels that come through the port catering for the live exports are meeting the requirements under New Zealand law in terms of the safe practices around handling that livestock on and off those vessels. We are very conscious of the fact that there are people with views out there in society that don't support live export, and we're actively working around supporting those people to express their views in a safe way. And equally, we're working through our sustainability development program, our strategy for the future, which will help to guide our decision making around these sorts of contentious issues in the future. At the moment, there's a review underway by the government on the future of livestock exports, and so, as I said earlier, we're currently making sure that the people that are needing livestock exports to go through the port are doing that according to the law.
So you wouldn't take a view prior to the government forming their own decision?
At this stage, we're not looking to take a view that would stop livestock exports, but we will be developing our sustainability strategy, which will help to inform what sort of views we take in the future, and the priority order that we apply to those sorts of decisions as well. That's this stage we're working through that.
And I'll just add one final point. The board will be having a special workshop early in February, which will be looking at both diversity and inclusion across the port, right across the whole range, and also looking at the ethical and sustainable governance issues. So it is an issue that is top of mind, and as Todd said, we are not just aware of the views of others, that we have a certain sympathy towards that. We just have to be very careful that we don't put individual moral views overriding legal requirements. So we're being very careful. Other questions? Question there. Chris has got the microphone.
Carl Goodchild. I'm just wondering, the cruise ship industry, obviously I think there was 86 ships came through or something of that nature. Is there going to be a top cap for ships entering Napier?
Do you mean a maximum number?
That's correct.
Just prior to, well, the lockdown period and during the IPO, we were discussing the fact that currently the limit for Napier Port is around about 90 ships per annum, until such time as Sixth Wharf became available. Obviously, the cruise industry stopped for now, but once Sixth Wharf becomes available, that cap of 90 effectively gets removed, and we can handle a lot more cruise ships into the future. Our expectation, though, is that once cruise industry does re-establish, and I think it will, it'll take a little bit of time, it will probably come back at a smaller level than what we saw previously and then just build over time. So I hope that answers your question.
Are you talking with Napier City Council about what Napier City can actually handle as well?
Yes, we are. We're always having conversations with Napier City Council and also with the Hawke's Bay Tourism Board as well, around what sort of infrastructure and planning that they're putting in place to be able to manage the number of passengers in particular and movements on and off the port back into Napier City.
Lovely, thank you.
Any other questions from the floor? Jo, are there any questions online?
Yes, Alistair. So it's more a comment rather than a question. It comes from Coralie Van Camp, who says, very satisfactory result under the circumstances. Looks like a good team in charge.
You read that. Normally we don't allow comments, it's just questions. But ones like that are fine. So. One more question. Joe's got the microphone for you.
Malcolm Reeves. I noticed you referred to the increase in capacity as a result of Sixth Wharf. What sort of increase actually in capacity will that result in? You didn't quantify. And I also wonder, and this is probably more tricky and requires a good crystal ball, when do you think you'll reach that capacity?
Straight to Todd.
Yeah, a couple of good questions there. So it's a good question, and one that we get quite often, particularly as we go around and see different investors and things around Sixth Wharf. The real underlying principle for Sixth Wharf is around actual parking spaces at the berth, rather than necessary capacity of cargo going through. What we found is that the port was getting very congested and running out of parking spaces, and hence the need to be able to bring Sixth Wharf into play. Plus the vessels were also getting bigger and bigger, so we were running out of the space to turn them around inside the port. Sixth Wharf unlocks that problem for us. But in terms of overall capacity, what we do is we do a view of the future in terms of what do we see in trade coming through to Napier Port, both from our natural catchment as well as potential trade that sits outside of our region. And that would indicate that the terminal, before we actually need to do anything additional other than Sixth Wharf, is around about 450,000 containers per annum. And then we look at other alternatives such as those freight hubs and off-port facilities to support the terminal's requirements for growth. And then we're also looking at those feeder networks of road and rail on and off the port. And that's what some of the issues that you're seeing around at other ports around the North Island today predominantly suffering from. It's not necessarily the port capacity itself, it's more the road and rail or sea networks that are feeding into them that's driving the congestion issues that they've got.
Supplementary question, the microphone's on its way. Oh, sorry, you got beaten.
Murray Twig from Napier. Just following on from that point, as far as infrastructure and logistics for the port is concerned, can you give me the port's opinion or position on the reopening of the Gisborne to Wairoa rail link? To me, it would seem that the road is not a very helpful road for bringing freight down from Gisborne, and also if the railway is reopened, that is a massive opportunity for reducing carbon emissions, which must be part of the philosophy of the port. Would you like to comment on where Napier Port sits as far as promotion of getting that rail link reopened?
Yeah, sure. So the Gisborne to Wairoa rail link is the bit that's not open today, and our understanding is that rail link requires a significant investment to reopen it. Rail's a little bit like ports in that they gobble up capital pretty quickly, and it's very, very expensive. The reality is that the volume of cargo in that region doesn't support, from an economic perspective, the reopening of that line. That's not to say that there aren't other benefits from the potential reopening of that line, such as you point out around the condition of the road, carbon emissions and things like that. It's going to be a politically charged conversation, I think, but from an pure economics perspective, it doesn't stack up.
And I would just add a further comment as someone who grew up in Gisborne, and you all probably picked that straight away by my accent. 40 odd years ago, the railway line was there, and it was the most underutilised piece of rail in New Zealand. There was a little rail car that ran back and forth, and it was virtually empty. Now, admittedly, the freight requirements have changed, but on a personal level, I would love to see that line reopened. I think it'd be good for the region. But as Todd says, right now, it's not economic. There was a supplementary question back there.
Malcolm Reeves again. Somewhat connected to the question about the Gisborne line, I have been thinking about the Napier-Taupo Road and also the Saddle Road redevelopment, and in general, to what extent is Napier port growth possibly going to be limited by such infrastructure and the need for continuing investment in those? Because I've listened to you say you're looking for growth outside of the immediate region, and obviously you are going to rely on road and rail links that in some cases are not entirely good at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it's something that we're constantly in discussions with the likes of Ministry of Transport, NZTA, etc. and local body governments around the actual supporting road and rail links into and out of the Hawke's Bay and to the port. The limitations are obvious on that Napier-Taupo Road, and I think anybody that's driven over it recently would probably know what sort of condition it's in, and I think there's good support from central government to back some additional funding into that road. The rail link in and out of our region is actually pretty good, and there's good capacity there to be utilised. The key constraint that we have at the moment is actually KiwiRail's rolling stock, the ability to supply rolling stock, to bring more cargo through on rail versus road. And I think there is at a national level been a legacy, I would say, of underinvestment in terms of the roading and rail network throughout New Zealand, and I think we're starting to see the effects of that today, in particular in the upper North Island and into and out of central Wellington as well. So we're constantly advocating for that, and in fact earlier this week I was in Wellington talking to the Ministry of Transport about such issues. Yep.
There's a question at the front here. Can we get a microphone?
Yeah, Mark Warren, Central Hawke's Bay. What contingency plans do you have for a big geophysical event, i.e. earthquake, tsunami? As exporters, we do really rely on your port, or our port, and it would worry me if I'm sure you have got plans, but to see that those exports put in jeopardy, particularly fresh exports and that sort of thing, that do rely on a short time turnaround. So we'd rely on that. So what contingency plans do you have in the case of a large earthquake or tsunami?
Yeah, thanks, Mark, and thanks for opening up your farm earlier for me this year, mate. Our latest development, as an example, Mark, is we're building the new wharf to a resilience level 4, which means it should withstand an earthquake that's a 1 in 1,000 year event. That should be probably still standing, and having walked down there every Friday with Alistair and looking at the amount of reinforcing steel and concrete and stuff that's going into that, I can assure you she's a pretty solid piece of kit. That doesn't mean to say that our other parts of our wharfs and our port are going to be to the same standard, but we are constantly doing work to maintain those. We're putting in equipment to be able to monitor the condition of them, plus give us indications on the condition of those assets when there is a small shake, and we often get those sort of small shakes in the Hawke's Bay. But equally, I think, as was shown with Centreport, New Zealand, it's not, if we get taken out, then probably other parts of New Zealand may also be taken out, and we've had 2 ports in New Zealand taken out recently, Littleton and Centreport. And that's where the roles of other ports come in to be able to support the need of New Zealand's exporters and importers to bring their products in and out. So it's one of those things that you can't completely plan for and guarantee any outcomes, but the contingencies are other ports stepping up to support the Hawke's Bay if needed. And hopefully good road and rail networks that are actually reasonably reliable to move things in and out of and around the country. The reality is, at the moment, as we're seeing with the Upper North Island, the capacity doesn't exist to be able to move all the cargo out of Hawke's Bay on road or rail. So that would be a real challenge, and we'd have to end up prioritising, I would imagine, during those sorts of major events as to what we can move around. Similar to what was done during the lockdown period when the government chose to prioritise food and essential cargo over non-essential cargo. I would imagine that would be the same case. And then you'd be reliant also on things like coastal vessels coming in to support the region, as was done in 1931, I believe, with the Navy and things like that coming in to support. But so you'd have to take it pretty much based on what sort of event was happening at the time.
There's one further question. Microphone heading your way.
Thank you. No, Perry Spiller, Hastings. I understand that Wakatū area is part of the expansion of hubs, and you've got a little bit of a controversy going on there with a residents group. How is that at the moment?
Yeah, so the Whakatū development is an exciting prospect for us. The port's owned the land for about 16, 17 years, always with the ambition and or thought that in some stage in the future we'd be able to use that as an inland port facility. During the lockdown period, the government initiated the Shovel Readies initiative, and we took the opportunity to put an application in because we see that is a critical piece of infrastructure that's needed for the Hawke's Bay in the future. That preempted the conversation that we would otherwise have been having with the local community about that development plan, so it took them a little bit by surprise. And so it would be fair to say we're now on the back foot a little bit with that community, but actively working to try and engage with them and talk to them about what does it look like, how would they be able to be, I guess, part of the development program, and make sure that whatever we develop in that region they support. We'd rather have their support than not. But our view is that longer term it's something that Hawke's Bay will require, and actually the whole central lower North Island will require, due to some of those infrastructure issues that we were just talking about before, and looking ahead for the central lower North Island, Hawke's Bay and New Zealand in terms of what sort of network we need, and Whakatū plays a key part in that. And if we had it today, all ready to go, I can tell you there would be a hell of a lot more Auckland imports coming through Napier and probably feedering back up on road and rail.
Okay, I think we had one further question down the front.
Hi, Megan Williams from Hastings. There's evidently a global shortage of containers, and yet when I drive from Hastings to the airport, I see a mountain of them. Presumably they're the wrong sort, but I feel like saying, can we sell them off or use them?
Actually, we need a lot more. That container depot that you're referring to at the moment is actually quite empty for this time of year. So even though sometimes people don't think they look very pretty, they're very important for us. And we would be wanting to see a hell of a lot more of them in town this time of year than we have today. There is a global wouldn't necessarily call it a shortage, but a redirection of containers to other markets throughout the world currently, as different parts of the economy in the world have come out of lockdown. Shipping lines are making hay while the sun shines and putting every stick of equipment and or shipping capacity to routes and trades where they're making the most money. New Zealand is exposed at the moment in terms of equipment supply, and that's a real concern for us in the Hawke's Bay as we come into our peak season. We're working very hard with the shipping lines to ensure that there are contingencies and that they've got these containers coming in to get our exports crucially back out. So I sympathise with your views, but I'd actually like to see a lot more of them there at the moment.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. I'm hoping that, given we've largely segued into general business and it's kind of hard to control that, we'll have a very short general business session. Last question at the front before we move on.
Thank you, Elizabeth Barrett again. I just wanted to talk about foreign currency, foreign exchange contracts and the foreign currency forwards. I note that you do the forwards only if they reach a certain threshold, and although the values are down slightly this year compared with last year, there are no foreign currency forwards. Is that a change in your thinking, or have you changed the thresholds, or is it that the thresholds are so high that you just haven't reached them? Thank you.
Good question.
It's probably just more down to timing of our procurement. So a relatively small proportion of our procurement is in foreign currencies. So as you noted, it's just really timing across the two balance sheet dates. Since the balance sheet date, we've actually engaged in some further foreign exchange contracts. So we are still using this part of our risk management practices. It's just a bit of time.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm now going to move on to the formal part of the business, matters requiring resolution which are outlined in the notice of meeting. Shareholders on Link's virtual meeting platform will be able to cast their vote using the electronic voting card received when online registration is validated. As detailed earlier, online shareholders will vote by clicking Get Voting Card in the online meeting platform. Please refer to the online virtual meeting portal guide or use the helpline 0800 200 220 if you require assistance. Online voting will remain open until 5 minutes after the conclusion of this meeting. Shareholders may ask questions after each formal item has been put forward to the meeting. We'll start with questions raised by those in the room before moving to any questions which have been submitted online. Each resolution set out in the notice of meeting is to be considered as an ordinary resolution and as such must be approved by a simple majority of the votes cast by shareholders entitled to vote and voting on the resolution. Your board supports each of the resolutions and intends to vote undirected proxies in favour of all resolutions. The outcome of proxy votes will be displayed for your information before voting on the resolution. I move as an ordinary resolution that Diana Puketapu be re-elected as a director of the company. Non-executive independent director Diana Puketapu retires by rotation in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution of the company and, being eligible, offers herself for re-election. The board fully support the re-election of Diana. I now invite Diana to address the meeting.
Thank you, Alistair. Tēnā koutou katoa ko Diana Puketapu aho. Good morning, morena to all of you. I was appointed to the Napier Port Board in 2017 at a time when Six Wharf was still to go through resource consent process, and as you've heard today from Todd, that process is now well underway and on track. During my term, my first term with Napier Port, I had the shared responsibility and privilege, along with my other fellow board members, to oversee the IPO process from conception through to successful implementation. If an IPO and a major wharf weren't enough, this year we saw the arrival of COVID-19, which took us through unprecedented waters to navigate. So I've had a fairly eventful first term. Should I be reappointed for a second term, my areas of focus will be continuing our culture of care that has been fostered at Napier Port, something that's really important and more significantly highlighted in a year such as the one we've just had. Driving operational resilience and efficiency is critical, particularly given the uncertainty in the world and the challenges we're seeing in the industry at this point in time. And supporting the adoption of our sustainability strategy. These areas of focus will continue to support the people and the economy of Hawke's Bay and ultimately the future growth of the Central and Lower North Island. In closing, I was born here in Napier, in fact on Hospital Hill, overlooking the port. Although I now live outside the Hawke's Bay, I enjoy my connection to this region and hope and will be honoured to be reappointed for a second term. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Are there any questions from the floor concerning the motion? No questions from the floor. Are there any online questions, Brendan? Nope. Okay, the proxy votes for the resolution 1 are now shown on the screen. So please mark your voting cards in the way you wish to vote by ticking for, against, or abstain in the appropriate place on the voting card. All done? Quick tick. Okay, I move as an ordinary resolution that John Harvey be re-elected as a director of the company. Non-executive independent director John Harvey retires by rotation and, being eligible, offers himself for re-election. The board fully support the re-election of John. I now invite John to address the meeting. John.
Thank you, Alistair, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to put myself forward for your support to continue as a director of Napier Port. You have a strong board representing your interests of Port and Napier, and I'm committed to remaining part of it. I was delighted to have the opportunity to become a director of Napier Port last year prior to the initial listing on the stock exchange. I had a passion for the industry, and I believed I had relevant experience to be able to add to the board and to the port. In addition to my general director experience, which is outlined in the notice of meeting, I had been on the port previously of Port Otago for 9 years, and prior to that in my professional life I had a significant involvement with the Port of Tauranga, including, showing my age here, being involved in the initial listing. I think that was around 1989. In addition, I had been involved in a number of other new listings, both as a director and in my professional life. As we've heard today, COVID-19 has made for a very difficult year for everyone, including Napier Port. But despite that, we've come a long way and delivered on most of what we committed to do at the time of the listing last year. We've probably come through stronger and better equipped in all respects to take on the exciting opportunities that are remaining in front of us. And congratulations go to Todd and his team for the efforts and results that they've achieved this year. I think you've certainly been well served by them, and I might add by the board. I can assure you I have that same passion that I had last year and enthusiasm, and I look forward to and appreciate your continued support so as we can continue on the journey to facing the challenges that remain ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions from the floor concerning the motion? No, no questions online, Brendan, thank you. So the proxy votes for Resolution 2 are now shown on the screen. So again, please mark your voting cards the way you wish to vote by ticking for, against, or abstain in the appropriate places on the voting card. All done. Resolution 3 is to authorise directors to fix the auditor's remuneration for the ensuing year. In accordance with Section 70 of the Local Government Act 2002, Napier Port Holdings Limited is a public entity as defined in Section 4 of the Public Audit Act 2001, and in accordance with that Act, the Auditor General is the auditor. The Auditor General has appointed Ernst & Young to undertake this audit on its behalf. The proposed resolution authorises the Board of Directors to fix the remuneration of the auditors for the ensuing year. Are there any questions from the floor concerning the motion? No, and there's presumably nothing online. So proxy votes for Resolution 3 are now shown on the screen. And again, I probably don't need to tell you which way to tick, but when you've all ticked. Ladies and gentlemen, our registry Link Market Services will now move through the room to collect your voting cards. And as I said earlier, the outcome of the votes, if they're available in time, they'll be announced while we're having refreshments. If not, they will be available on the NZX platform and the Napier Port website as soon as they are available. There's one down here, just over there, Brendan, if you can. Oh. It's like sending a collection plate round the church, except you're all much more keen to put stuff in, so. Has everyone managed to get their voting card into a voting box? Oh, still one at the front here. Brendan is coming steaming down to grab it. No others. Okay, the floor is now open for general business. I'm hoping that we've covered a lot of it already. Can I remind you that when I call for questions, please wait for a microphone and then clearly state your name before asking the question. To be fair to all shareholders, I ask that questions be as concise as possible, and please be considerate to other shareholders wishing to ask questions. For the sake of good order, shareholders should speak once. Should only speak once. We'll take questions from the floor first and then go to our online participants, although I am going to read the three that were mailed in well before this meeting and I'll deal with them first, and then we'll deal with questions on the floor. So the first question is from David Anthony Loveridge, and he says, it states that as of 30/9/20, no directors or entities related to them had interest in shares in the company. Frankly, this is appalling that the board of directors is saying that they don't believe in the company. Why is it not compulsory for all directors to purchase in shares what their directors' fees are in 1 year? It's an interesting perspective. Just for the avoidance of any doubt, in an IPO, it is very, very normal for all directors to take a reasonable investment in the business. We chose as a board not to do that because we did not want to be seen to personally profit from a partial privatisation of a regional asset. Now, a number of major investors, both here and in Australia, initially were sceptical about that, and yet when we explained the rationale, we got a very big tick on their ethical score sheet for that. Since then, it is entirely at the discretion of directors as to whether they choose to invest in shares or not. I have to say, in a publicly listed company, the timing issues make life very challenging for investments. But the reason it's not compulsory is because we live in a democracy. We have a question from Stephen Jan van der Linden. Will there be interim and final dividends paid from 2021 onwards? The decision on interim dividends will be made on the day, as will the decision on final dividends. It is worth noting that our policy hasn't changed, and our intention is to return a stable and growing dividend return to shareholders. The last written question we received from Michael Lahaye and Winifred Ann Lahaye. Are the board actively seeking business available due to Port of Tauranga overflow of container ships? The short answer is yes. The reality is we're always looking for new business, and as a philosophy, we never want to waste a good crisis. So we're doing everything we can to optimize our position in this current situation. Now, questions from the floor. Oh, there's one back there. Microphone is just coming.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Michael Midgley from the Shareholders Association. I have a question, but first, as this is the first opportunity we've had to be here, our congratulations and compliments to the board, particularly having endured such a tough first year. You have done very well, and it has been an example to others in how to conduct business in a proper way. I do have a question, and it only surfaced this morning when I heard on the media the proposition, surely tongue-in-cheek, but maybe not, that the inter-island ferry should now be coming to Napier. I will not be surprised if you say that's news to you, but I'd like to hear that from your own lips.
It's absolutely, well, it was news to me when I walked in here this morning because I heard Todd talking about it, but I'll let Todd respond.
It's not news to me, but it doesn't mean we're going to see them anytime soon. There was a conversation held with Kiwi Rail earlier in the year about the potential for Napier Port to act as a backup for Wellington, which we can actually do. So they came and did a discussion with us about their new size of vessels, the ability for our port to handle a roll-on, roll-off capability, which we can do onto particularly Four Wharf in our port, and it would be a conversation about the resilience of New Zealand's infrastructure should another quake take out the inter-island ferry berth in either Picton or Wellington today. So yeah, it was a conversation that occurred, but it wasn't quite the way it was portrayed in the media this morning, no.
Just to add, in the 7 years I've been involved in the port, we've at least twice had approaches about being a backup, so I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Any other general business questions? One here at the front. Microphone steaming your way.
Thank you. Perry Spiller, Hastings. The endorsement of the two directors standing for re-election by the board, does that indicate that the board does not look further afield? It could be seen as a slightly cosy arrangement, and is the board denying itself the opportunity of other people who may have valuable skills and experience to add to the board?
It's an interesting question. The reality is that boards are always looking for new people, new skills, and diversity of thought. But as chair, I also have to balance the need to have a decent succession plan in place. John, as you heard, just joined the board recently. He joined because of his port experience and his very, very significant listed company experience and experience going through an IPO. That's a skill set that we have valued so highly that we've asked him to stay on for a further term. And the board is absolutely thrilled to have John continuing to stand. Diana has proved herself a fantastic board member. She does bring diversity of thought. And we're partway through a process. We did a board self-assessment at the end of last year, or the end of this year, but where, I'm losing track of days, where we also did a skills assessment against where we thought the next set of skills would be needed. That's a process which we will progress through the coming year, and we'll be looking to fill any skill gaps that we've got. But it is a matter of just an orderly process to make sure that we don't lose institutional knowledge during transitions, and it's something that I've had very much in my mind over the last 7 years. Any online questions, Brendan? No? Okay. In concluding our annual shareholders meeting for the 2020 financial year, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank a few people for the key role they've played in our success over the last year. On behalf of the board, I extend thanks to all shareholders, our region, and the cargo owners who entrust their product to Napier Port. And to the entire Napier Port team, who, led by an excellent senior management team, have delivered an outstanding result. As I call the meeting to a close, I'd like to invite you all to a light refreshment in the exhibition hall. We also have some of our people available to answer any questions about port operations. And of course, our directors will be there to answer governance questions or any other questions you've got. I do have one slightly depressing piece of news just to finish this off. We were hoping, as I'd said right at the start, to have the bus tours starting at 12 and rolling through. Unfortunately, we've had a fire on a ship on Fore Wharf, and it's just not going to be practical to run some tourists through the port while we've got potentially emergency underway. So I really do wish that the timing had been better, because I know a lot of you, it is the one chance in a year you get to look at the port. And I think for those who've registered, we should, as a gesture of goodwill, make an effort to organise bus tours through the port early in the new year at a time that suits. Because for many people, it is a really important opportunity to see the port where you've invested your money. So I'd like us to do what we can to remedy that situation. And so I don't need to tell you, but you need to have photo ID to get on the bus, because there ain't no bus. Okay, that concludes the meeting, and now please feel free to go and grab some refreshments. Oh, thank you.